So we're going to start with the document types and statuses of QuoteWerks. So again, you're going to start to see a lot of this kind of intermingled now. This will be pretty brief, and then we're going to go into the contact management integration portion. So the different document types in QuoteWerks, we have quotes, orders, and invoices, and we can also create purchase orders. Now in QuoteWerks, there's not really a difference between a quote or an order or an invoice. So with a lot of systems, when you use QuoteWerks, or a lot of systems other than QuoteWerks, when you create an order document or an invoice, it has specific functions that it does. In QuoteWerks, that's not the case. It's just another document. The reason we have these different document types, though, is so that if you need to create a sales order, you can do that in QuoteWerks, or if you need to create a document that says invoice to send to your customer, you have the ability to do that in QuoteWerks. But the document itself doesn't have any special functions. The only one that's going to be a little different is the purchase order. So if you want to send your vendor like a purchase order document from QuoteWerks, you can do that, and then you can actually have it sort by vendor. So on your deliver window, there's actually a default purchase order layout that comes with the software, and when you select it, you'll actually see there's an option that says create PO for each vendor. When that box is checked, if you have a quote that has multiple vendors, in my case I only have one, but if I had 2 different vendors in there, it would actually create a separate document for each vendor that have been created. So that's really only going to be the only difference between the document types as far as quotes and orders and invoices go. The PDF or the quotes will be converted to PDFs or RTF documents by default. Usually PDF is what you're going to send your customer because you don't want them making changes. But you can also send them an RTF document. So if you are interested in the customer being able to make changes, or you don't want to send them a PDF, you can change that. Again, that's going to be on that Tools My Preferences menu that we talked about with emailing, where you can actually deliver an RTF version rather than a PDF version. The document statuses are set on your Sale Info tab. These are created by default when you start a new document in QuoteWerks. So when you click New, when you start with a new open order or new invoice, it's going to set the status typically of open. Again, that's one of those settings that we changed under the Tools Options menu, where you can actually set that default document status for each new document you create in QuoteWorks. When you convert a quote to an order, so let's go back to one of my quotes here. So if I convert this quote to an order, select the contact. So when you convert a quote to an order, you're going to have a couple different options. This is going to be important to do for 2 reasons. Converting the quote to an order is how we close the quote in QuoteWerks, how we set that status to close automatically. So that's what you're going to do for a lot of your reporting information. It's also how you're going to be able to process any orders through QuoteWerks. So if you're going to use our online ordering, you actually have to convert the quote to an order. Our purchasing module will not look at any quotes that are out there. It'll only look at orders. So that's going to be important if you plan on using the purchasing module in QuoteWerks. When you bring up the convert to order window, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to say, okay, we're going to create a new document for you called an order, and it's going to have this status. Again, these are just the default settings that we're using. It's going to take our quote and change it to this status, so it's going to change it to close. We use close as 1 in QuoteWerks, so basically a closed quote means that it was 1. If the customer is not moving forward with the document, then we would convert it to lost. So if I cancel out of here, you'll see there's an option that says convert to lost sale. So if you want to close out this quote, say, hey, customer's never going to move forward, just do file, convert to lost sale, and it'll change that status to lost in QuoteWerks instead. You're going to have a couple different options here. We can allocate the inventory for this order. So if you remember at the very, very beginning of the training, we talked about being able to do some very minimal kind of inventory management, and this is where we can actually do that. So when this is checked, this will actually deduct the availability field of an item based on how much you quoted. So if you quoted 3 of an item and there were 6 available, it'll deduct that, and now you'll have 3 available left. So this is where you can have it update that availability field. That's all it's going to do. So it's important to note that it is pretty limited in that scope. This is also where you can apply default literature for the new order. So if you remember in the options, we also talked about applying that literature documentation for your quotes and orders automatically. Here you can actually apply it for your order as well. And then this is going to be important for your opportunities. So your opportunities are updated with the correct pricing information. You want to remove the non-selected optional items. So if you're giving optional items to your customer, you want to make sure this is checked because you want those options removed if the customer decided not to move forward with them. That way they update the opportunity correctly in your CRM and your PSA, so your quote in QuoteWerks matches what your opportunity says in your CRM or PSA. And then additionally, these are where your revisions are going to be. So if you want to delete any previous revisions, there'll be a checkbox and you can remove it. So you can actually delete that previous revision. If you want to leave the revision, you can just leave it unchecked and it won't delete it in QuoteWerks.
And the status of that revision will remain open.
Right, you'll have to go to that revision and change it to lost or closed or set a specific status for it. So when you convert a quote to an order, you'll see here, it'll change it to order. So anytime you look at a document, if you're unsure what it is, there's two places you can look. You can look here, and it'll tell you if it's a quote, order, or invoice. You can also look at the document number. If this is a Q, that means it's a quote. If it's an O, it's an order. If it's an I, it's an invoice. So this document designator will very quickly tell you what type of document you're looking at in QuoteWerks. If you're going to be creating purchase orders, like I said, once you click on the deliver window and you select a purchase order layout, you can actually create a PO for each vendor in QuoteWerks, and this will actually send out a purchase order document from QuoteWerks for each vendor. It's really just sort of like sending the quote to your customer, sending the quote to your customer, except it's going to be vendor information, so it'll have like part numbers, whatever they were charging you for, so your cost typically, and then usually the vendor part number as well. Those layouts are customizable, so if you need to change it to have some other type of information on there, you can do that. Invoices are going to be basically the same thing as quotes. They're just going to be another document type. Since we're not an accounting program, we're not receiving payments, we're not updating anything that's been paid. So really an invoice document you can use just to send your customer an invoice. If they just need a document from you saying, hey, we accept this quote, can you send us an invoice so we can make payment? You can convert the quote to an invoice in QuoteWerks under the same menu, so file, convert to invoice, and that'll change it over to an invoice. You'll see here it'll change it over to invoice, and then you can send the customer an invoice document if you need. That's really essentially all it does. Like I said, we're not creating these documents to have special privileges or anything like that in QuoteWerks. It's just a different document type. If you need to use QuoteWerks to do any kind of basic ordering or invoicing, you can do it for that. Okay. So now we're going to get into the contact management side of things. So now things are going to change a little bit because we're actually going to use all the CRMs that everyone's using in here and show you how those integrations work, show how those are set up. For some of them, it's going to be a very simple setup where you just select the CRM. For others, it's going to be a lot more complicated than that. We won't go through all of them specifically ConnectWise. There's a lot involved in that setup, but I can show you where all those integration steps are. So the first one we're going to do is Goldmine. So I'm going to change screens here. So when you're using Goldmine or any contact manager, you always set up your contact manager under contacts, set up contact manager, and then you have your contact manager selected here. In QuoteWerks, we'll always show you what versions of the CRM we support, so you can actually quickly view which ones are supported. With a lot of them that update often, such as like ConnectWise, ACT, Goldmine, you'll always see those patch updates here. They usually number them very similarly, where it's like 2014.2, 2014.1, things like that. So for Goldmine users, we'll click on the Goldmine setup, and then this is where we're going to set a couple different options here. You have the option to set the profit amount versus the sale amount in the forecasted sale. So if you wanted to use the profit, how much money you're actually making rather than the entire sale of the document, you can set that here. This is also going to be important as well. So if you want QuoteWerks to update the forecasted sale from QuoteWerks into Goldmine, you need to make sure this is set. So this is basically saying when you convert a quote to an order, then it'll update the opportunity in Goldmine. If you have it set this way, it's not going to update that opportunity in Goldmine until you convert it to an invoice. You can also set it as never. So if you don't want QuoteWerks to update that opportunity as one, then you can set it as never there. For our purposes, we're going to go ahead and choose automatic when converting to order. The forecasted sale and completed sale notes, you can have QuoteWerks send over the notes, and then you can see you can even set up those notes here. So you can actually choose the note information that's going to be sent over. And then you have the option to always write to the notes, so it's going to overwrite anything existing. Write to notes only if notes are empty, that way it doesn't write over existing notes, so that's important. And you can also have it say not write to notes. Typically you'll probably have it write to notes only if notes are empty, that way it's not overwriting anything that already exists there. The fax rush, Omni Rush, we're not going to go over because that you have to get on a very old version of Goldmine to use that. And then the miscellaneous, if you're printing a purchase order, you can actually retrieve the vendor information from Goldmine as long as they're set up in Goldmine with that checkbox. You can also use Goldmine's account number versus the company name to look up the customer price history. So if you'd rather use the account number in Goldmine for specific companies instead of the company name to see the customer's price history when you're adding items, you can use that by checking that box there. And then when link documents are created, set the owner to public, that makes it so everyone can view that document. And then you can hit OK. If you need to pull additional fields from Goldmine into QuoteWerks, this is where the data link is going to be. And this is going to be dependent, this is actually going to work for pretty much every CRM as well. So if you want to pull in the, tax rate for a specific company, the way you would do that is you would click on your Create New Mapping, so this gold button here. And anytime you see a gold button in QuoteWerks, that's a new button essentially. So anytime you see gold, that means it's going to create new something. So in this case, it's going to create a new data link mapping, and we're going to select our event. So on the sold to, and from Goldmine, we're going to read into QuoteWorks, and we're going to pull in. So it's okay. We'll use another field. I had a tax rate field in there. Wanted to pull in maybe the title of the customer along with the everything else. We can choose the field from Goldmine that we want to pull in, and then we choose which field we want it to show up in QuoteWorks. Maybe we want it to show up in the custom text 01 field. And then I can hit OK, and then you'll see it'll show up now. So now, anytime I pull in a contact, it's going to take that customer's title, and it's going to put it into that custom text 01 field for me in QuoteWorks. So that's how you can pull additional fields from Goldmine into QuoteWorks. The nice thing about Goldmine, Act, and a CRM, a lot of these are going to be, this setup is very easy. There's not much to it, so it's just a couple options, and then you hit OK, and then the integration works. So to add a contact to QuoteWorks, we're going to click on the Sold To, Ship To tab, and then we'll click on our magnifying glass. Remember we talked about earlier being able to retrieve the current contact if they're open. So if I click on that, that'll actually pull in that exact contact from Goldmine into QuoteWorks. When I do that, you'll see I have that contact already associated with a couple other quotes, so those show up here on my active quotes panel. If I wanted to search for a contact, I can do that. I can use the current contact in Goldmine. I can also search for a specific contact in Goldmine. I can search by company, contact, last name, and phone number. So if I type in Western, it'll return back. If I want to see secondary contacts, I can check that box, and if there were any secondary contacts with this company, that would pull in as well. Your sold to, ship to, and bill to fields correlates with your sold to, ship to, and bill to here. If you click Alt, it'll populate all three fields with the same contact information. You can mix and match, so if you need to sell to one location, ship to another, bill to another, you can do that. Like I said before, the sold to is the default field. This is who we're going to create the opportunity for in QuoteWorks. So you do want to make sure, or in Goldmine, so you do want to make sure that you have that contact information in QuoteWorks. So let's go ahead and we're just going to add a couple items here. Alright. So once you've built your quote for the customer and you're ready to send it to the customer, you need to save your quote in QuoteWorks. This is how you trigger the integration with any CRM or PSAs on the save. So when I click save, I'm going to go ahead and create my new document, and it's going to default with my document name, so the company I'm selling to and today's date. It's going to assign my document number, my status, and my project number, and then this is where you're going to see your CRM integration point. So in this case, Goldmine, we're able to create a link document, which is a shortcut back to the QuoteWorks quote. We're able to create a profile, or create or update a profile detail record, create or update a follow-up call, and create or update a forecasted sale or an opportunity, as a lot of the other CRMs call it. So with those checked, I'll hit OK. It's going to save my quote in QuoteWerks first. So you can see there's our quote, everything's saved. And then it's prompting me to link to an existing opportunity, so I can actually select an opportunity if it was previously created. Or if I want to create a new one, I can click New, and then it's going to ask me, okay, what do you want to create? An opportunity or a project? Put in your name, the goldmine user, the status, stage, source, all that information, and then I click OK. Creates that opportunity. Now I have the option to create a follow-up call, so if you need to set a reminder or anything like that, we're going to be able to do that as well. So it's going to create my forecasted sale option, and then my goldmine follow-up call. Set your date, time. You can even create an alarm for yourself if you need to set a reminder. Select the user again, and then hit OK. And then it'll show up. So then if we go into goldmine, and we go to our opportunities, and now we can see here's the opportunity that we just created today. And we can view that on our opportunity screen. So all that information flows over from QuoteWerks into goldmine. And then the way that we convert that to an order, or we can update that opportunity, because of that setting in our goldmine integration, when you convert the quote to an order, it's going to prompt you to update that opportunity in goldmine as successful in this case, or in one or closed in a lot of the other CRMs as well. So that's going to be the different kind of terminology options there. So I can hit OK, and then that'll update the opportunity as one in or completed. Doug, are you using goldmine? Yeah. Did you have any questions about the integration with goldmine? I know you've been using it for a really long time, so I don't know that you have too much with that, but is there anything that big questions about?
The integration.
Okay.
Well, yeah, the question I would have is having to do with transferring our QuickBooks. That's a whole.
Okay, yeah, and we'll go over the QuickBooks integration. So, let's go ahead and go back. So now I know we have some I know we have some users who are using ACT. So ACT and goldmine, the integration is going to be very similar. So we're going to again go to Contacts, Set a Contact Manager. Go to ACT as your setup, and then you're going to have your opportunity setup. So it's going to be just a little different because they use a little different terminology. Again, you're going to see this completion of sales opportunity from QuoteWerks. So we have it set for automatically converting to order. That's pretty much going to be the default for all the CRMs that we use. That's kind of what we recommend. You can change it to invoice if you'd like, if that's what you normally use, or never, but typically it's going to be converted to order if you want QuoteWorks to update it. For ACT, we can write the individual line items into the ACT opportunity. So you're going to have two different options. We can write a single summary line into the ACT opportunity. What that means is that instead of writing the individual line items into the opportunity of ACT, it's going to write one line item, call it probably QuoteWerks, I think is what it calls it, and then it just has the total of your quote. So if you just want, I just need to know the total of the items in there, then you can do the single summary line. If you want individual line item details, you're going to want to make sure you have that set here. You'll also need to set the product ID mapping. In QuoteWerks, the manufacturer part number field is basically the only field we require for all our items. So the manufacturer part number field in QuoteWerks always has to have a part number. That's how we write into anything. That's how we write into QuickBooks, how we write into ConnectWise, Autotask, ACT. Any of our integrations are going to use this manufacturer part number field, so you always want to make sure you have that. It's also going to be important for doing any type of reporting, any of that information, so you're going to make sure you always have that. You can change it if you want to use a different field to write into ACT. You know, maybe you have an internal part number that you want to write into ACT instead. You can do that, and you can also select generation options. So if you want QuoteWorks to auto-generate a part number based on a specific macro, maybe like the company's document name or something like that, you can change that option. For our purposes, we're going to go ahead and use the default setting of manufacturer part number. Now, because we have different line types in QuoteWorks, this can cause an issue with the CRM if you don't have those specified for the CRM. So in this case, we need to basically tell ACT what kind of products they are. So if it's a product or a service item, basically a normal line item, it's going to go into ACT as a general product. If it doesn't have a part number. So if you had a blank part number, then it's going to say QuoteWerks general part number. If it's a group header line, it's going to go in as a QuoteWerks bundle, QuoteWerks discount, QuoteWerks charge, QuoteWorks formula for those different line types. So if you don't have part numbers for these specific line types in QuoteWerks, these are the defaults that it's going to use. That way it will still write this information into the opportunity into ACT. You also have the option to include the item cost in the opportunity. So if you check the box here, this will also write the cost into the opportunity as well. So you hit OK. You'll also see ACT has the data link available also. So if there's other fields you want to pull in from ACT into QuoteWerks, again, we're going to click on the new button. So anytime you see the gold button, it's the new. You'll click Retrieve to Sold To. You're always going to click Retrieve to Sold To unless you're using Salesforce. Salesforce is the only one you'll have the option to pull from like the header of the items. But for every other CRM, you're going to use the Retrieve to Sold To. External system ID is going to be ACT. And then we're going to choose Read into QuoteWerks. And then external field source. So this is where you're pulling the ACT field. So you're going to choose which field you want to pull in from ACT. So maybe we have a this user defined field 1. We want to pull that information from ACT into our QuoteWerks field. So we can choose which QuoteWerks field we want to use it. We're going to pull into custom text as well. So it's going to make it easy to pull that extra data from ACT into QuoteWerks using the data link mappings here. Once you've added that link there, you can simply click OK and then hit OK. And now it has your new settings. So just as before, you're going to be able to pull your contact into ACT. Now you can use your retrieve current contact. So if you have the current contact open in ACT that you want to use, you can pull them into QuoteWerks. If you want to search for them, then you click on the search for contact option. It'll bring up your lookup at contact window, and you can use the contact currently displayed, or you can search for a contact to pull into QuoteWerks. And again, it's going to be by company, contact, last name, or phone number. So if I type in CH, it'll show me a list of all contacts associated with that. You can also do secondary contacts if any exist. Let's go ahead and select this one. Now we've selected our contact, we can start adding items to the document. So we click on products, add items here. And then again, the trigger to send the information from QuoteWerks to your CRM is going to be on the save. So hit save. It's going to ask us for our document name, set the document number, status, project number, and then now you have the option for the different ACT integrations. So if we want to create that link document in ACT, we can do that. You'll see here this is a checkbox, so if you don't want to create that shortcut, you can uncheck it. If you remember earlier we were talking about attaching the DTF file, which is the QuoteWerks document transport file, into your CRM. That's what this link document is. That is supported in all CRMs across the board, but if you don't want QuoteWerks to write in, attach that document, you can leave that unchecked. You can also create a follow-up call, a meeting, a to-do, and a sales opportunity. So for our instances, we're going to do a follow-up call and sales opportunity. Since the follow-up call, meeting, and to-do, the window looks exactly the same in QuoteWerks, so we're not going to go through that. Hit OK. So it prompts us to create our new ACT opportunity. So you can select your process, the stage, probability, and estimated close date. This information is pulling from ACT, so you can change it based on the settings that you have available in ACT. The opportunity name, if you remember, is set from QuoteWerks. That is in the tools options on the miscellaneous tab, I believe. But anyway, in the tools options window, that's where you can set that opportunity name. Like I said, by default, we were using the document name and the document number, so that's what populates here is this opportunity name. You can add a new note for that ACT opportunity, and then if you need to associate it with or add a competitor that you're competing with this revenue over, you can put that information in here, and then I can hit OK. That's going to create my opportunity, and then it's going to bring up my ACT call activity. So this is where I can schedule a reminder call or a follow-up call, and I can actually choose who it's for just by clicking on schedule for, the duration, priority, and if I need to set an alarm, I can do that as well. And then if we go into ACT, refresh our opportunities. So this is where that, I forgot to mention one thing. If you pull a contact into Act automatically, you're going to pull the open contact instead of doing the search. So since I did the search, I'm going to go ahead Alright, so now I have my opportunities, and then I also have on my activities tab, I have my call that I scheduled, so you can view that scheduled call information for that specific company. If you go to your opportunities, it's going to be under the other contact. I wanted to show you the activities that all that information flows to one area. So once your customer has accepted the quote, you can then convert it to an order. So again, this is going to follow the same process as the other ones. We're going to file, convert to order. You can see it's going to change my quote to an order, hit OK. And then it's going to change it to a 1/closed sale. You can put a reason in there if you need to. The close date, create a new note, put in competitor information if you need to, and then hit OK. Once you do that, it updates it in Act for you. It'll write the line items into Act as well if you need that information. That was part of the setup that we did. So you can change that also if you need to. Mark, did you have any questions about the Act integration? I know you've been using it for forever as well, so.
That's good.
Alright, so now we're going to go into a couple of the other ones. Let's go back into QuoteWerks. Okay, so I know someone said that they were looking at using Google Contacts for their contacts in QuoteWerks. So again, if you want to set that up, it's going to be in the same place. We're going to click on Contacts, Set up Contact Manager, and then there's an option for Google Contacts. And all you're going to do is you're just going to put in your Google information here. Now, one thing to note is that Google has specific security settings. If anyone has a Gmail account, you probably know that they're pretty tight with their security. So if you put in your credentials, it may pop up a message saying that you need to allow access to third-party apps. There'll actually be a link in the message that pops up to let you change that setting. So if you need to make that adjustment, you'll be able to do that. Other than that, it's going to be very straightforward. You can even test it, and it'll let you know, hey, it was tested successfully. And then once you've added that, you can simply add your contacts from your Google record. So I'll select it. So I can look up, so I can pull a contact from my Google, just that easy. That's the only integration we have with the contacts right now, but at least you do have the access to pull them into QuoteWerks. And like I said, if you do get that error message, just let support know, because there's a message that'll pop up, and you just have to change the setting and turn it on. What Google will actually do, it'll send you an email to your secondary email address saying, hey, someone tried to access your account. So that's what that message is about.
Connected, it works good.
Okay, awesome. Alright, so the next one is Outlook. So I know a lot of you guys use Outlook for your contacts and also for emailing. So you have Outlook running, so we're good there. One thing to note, if you're going to use Outlook for your contacts, make sure you do have it running. It's actually also true with Goldmine and Act, that you're going to want to make sure you have that running before you open QuoteWerks, otherwise you might get an error message. So for Outlook, we're going to choose Outlook Setup, and then you're going to just set your specifics here. So we're going to choose where do you want to look for contacts. So if it's just your personal contacts, you'll just use the default personal contacts folder. If you're on like a shared drive, on an Exchange server or something like that, then you can use a specified contacts folder of where that's going to be. Usually it's going to be the default, but like I said, you can change that if you need to. You'll be able to test it to make sure that you can, that you do have access to that folder. So any of you that you're using Outlook for your contacts, you'll be able to test to make sure that they are pulling from the right one.
Is that going to cause a problem if I'm working remote, if I'm using so that the specified contact I'm using a folder on Exchange, is it going to use, am I still just going to pull right through Outlook Anywhere to do my Exchange integration and pull that contact information?
Yes. Or it's supposed to.
Fair enough, fair enough.
There are some issues with some versions of Outlook, I forget which one they are. So if you do get a message like that, just call them to support and they can troubleshoot that for you. Below here, in the miscellaneous option, it'll let you choose which type of addresses to use. By default, it's going to set it as business, but you can also set it as home or do both. If you want to be able to pull either home or business addresses, you can set that here. You can set that default. I'm going to go ahead and set mine to business as well. The advanced integration will let you create a linked document in Outlook. It'll use the journal folder by default, so it's going to use your personal one or use, again, the specified one on the server. Same thing for the follow-up calls. If you want to use your personal calendar or a specified calendar, you can set that here. This does have to be your Outlook calendar. You can't like link it to your Gmail calendar or anything like that. So it is just going to be either your personal calendar in Outlook or like the Exchange calendar on Outlook. And there also is data link available for Outlook as well. So a lot of you are using Outlook. If you want to pull additional fields that we don't pull in automatically via Outlook, the data link setup will let you do the exact same one that we walked through before. So we would do create new mapping, select always retrieve on the SOL 2. It's going to be Outlook. Read into QuoteWerks, and then you select which field you'd like to pull in. Okay, so we'll just user 1. And then now when I pull that contact in QuoteWorks, it's going to pull that user defined field into my custom field. Is anyone using the Business Contact Manager? No? If any of you decide to use the Business Contact Manager, Outlook basically has an add-on which makes Outlook more of a true CRM. I forget what the differences are, but it adds a lot more functionality where you can create like opportunities and things like that. So there is an integration available if you decide to go that route. Since no one's using that here, we'll go ahead and we'll skip that step. So the Outlook integration is going to be pretty straightforward, pretty easy to set up. And we can hit OK, hit OK. And then just like the other integrations, we'll go to our Sold to Ship to tab, click on our magnifying glass. This will bring up our lookup Outlook window, and you can search by company, last name, business phone, or home phone. And so in our case, I'm going to type in Aspire, and it has myself and Norm. So if I want to select Norm here, I can pull him into QuoteWorks, and it'll populate all his contact information here for me. Same thing if I click Alt, it'll populate all 3 accounts. So selecting the contact should be second nature to you guys by now, but as you can see, it's very easy to do. If you do have that contact currently open and selected in Outlook, QuoteWorks can pull them in just like we do for Act and Goldline as well. So let's go ahead and hit save on this quote. Duplicate this real quick. Cool. So when you save it, it's going to prompt you to create the link document. I have mine automatically set to always create that link document. That was part of that look for synchronized DTF files in your tools options, so if you want to change that, you can. This is also where you can create the follow-up call for Outlook. So if you need to set a reminder for yourself, you can do that. You can hit OK, and it'll just bring up that Outlook follow-up call window, and you can choose the reminder setting, the start time, date, everything. And you can even change the subject if you want to. So I know we have quite a few people that are using Outlook for contacts. Does anyone have any questions about the integration? How to use it?
You'll find the QuoteWerks link on the journal page in Outlook.
Okay, so your follow-up call will be on your calendar that we talked about earlier, and then on your journal entry. I have to remember what this is now. I don't remember where the journal entry is. That's where the file is.
Bummer, because neither do I, and I thought you were going to show me.
Let me find it in the manual real quick. There we go. Of course, yeah. I know where it is. Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. It's in a really weird spot and it's not easy to get to. I know that's extremely helpful, but I'll find out for you. I just don't remember off the top of my head. It does exist. I have actually seen it before. So I'll find that for you. Any other questions about the Outlook integration?
I'm just having some issues with the calendar, but I can talk to you offline about it.
Okay.
The reminder.
The reminder's not popping up?
Uh-huh.
Are you getting any message or?
Yeah, I'm getting a mail message. I can show you offline.
Okay. Okay. Alright, so MSCRM. The MSCRM integration works with version 7.0 all the way back to 5.0. You're going to have a couple different options. You're going to see the first thing you're going to need to choose is actually your server version. If you're already using QuoteWerks, it's probably already set for you. We have a very old version of MSCRM, so I'm going to show you version 4. But again, we do support all the way up to 2015 on the Active Directory or the internet-facing option and the CRM Live option. So I think 7 gives you the Active Directory or the CRM Live. I think the internet-facing is version 5. Correct. So you'll set your server version, the URL, organization information, and then your username and password. So if you're not using Active Directory, you're going to have to specify your MS-CRM user credentials here. If you're using the CRM Live, it's going to require you to use the username and password. And then also, if you remember when we were on the tools, my preferences, there's the Contact Manager tab. You'll have to put that in for your individual users also. So in our setup's going to be pretty simple. We're going to select if we want to convert it to an order, if it's automatically going to convert it to an order, automatic when converting to an invoice, or never. So this is when we update the opportunity in MS-CRM as 1. So these are going to be your options, and again, it's going to look very similar to the other ones. This is also where you can set if you want to use the profit amount versus the sale amount in the opportunity. So if you'd rather have the profit amount in your opportunity instead of the sale amount, you can check this box here. And then if you want QuoteWerks to write the individual line items into CRM, you do need to have this box checked that says create MS-CRM quote, because this MS-CRM quote is where the write-in items are. So you need to make sure that's checked. And then you can choose the parts list, or the price list rather. And then you can choose how the item is going to be sent to CRM. So the MS-CRM item number, by default, you're going to use the QuoteWerks manufacturer part number. You can change this again if you want to by clicking on the drop down. So if you want to use like a specific part number, we have an internal part number field you can use, or a vendor part number field, you can use that also. You can also use the part number generator option, which will let you generate using a specific part number. Typically, these are going to be the settings that you'll see. It's going to be the automatic, create the MS-CRM quote with each opportunity, and then the note attachments, you can choose if you want it to be on the account, or the contact, or the opportunity. I know that was a feature that a lot of CRM users have requested, being able to attach the note to the account instead of the opportunity. So now we give you the option to make that selection. Okay. Data link is available for CRM as well. So you can choose retrieve sold to. Make sure you select MS-CRM here, read into QuoteWerks, and then select your field. Pretty straightforward there. And then again, the integration or selecting contacts is going to look and work very similar. We're going to look up the contact name, so we're going to look it up by account name, account phone, contact first name, contact last name, contact phone, and phone number. This one might take a moment. Okay. So once you have found your account, you can also see there's an option to display the account contacts. So if you have contacts associated with the account as well, you can select one of those. So if I want to select myself here, I can pull them into QuoteWerks, click all. information across all the fields. You can mix and match the system as the algorithms. So now that I have it, if I save it, I'll have the option to it'll prompt me to name it, so I can type in whatever I like. And then you have your option to create that link document again, create that follow-up call, and create these sales opportunities. Okay. And it's prompting me to create the CRM call, so I can choose who I want to schedule it for. The duration, the date, priority, time, all that information. So I'm going to create that. And now it's going to prompt me to create our opportunity. So if you have an opportunity that already exists, you can click on the drop down and actually link to that existing opportunity. Keep in mind that if you do link to an existing opportunity in CRM, QuoteWerks takes ownership of it. So it is actually going to basically replace the information in that opportunity with the information from your current quote here. So that's just something that you need to keep in mind when you decide to link to that existing opportunity. So for our purposes, we're going to create a new one, set our dates, you can put in a description if you like, and hit OK. And then this will create our opportunity. And then if I go into CRM, navigate to opportunities. You can actually access this opportunity from here, and this loads. Here's our opportunity, and I can double click on that, and it'll actually open up this opportunity for us. Our opportunity was created, has all our relevant information that we need. If we go to the quote for this opportunity, you can drill down even more, and then you can get to the righted products. So that's where the items come from QuoteWerks. So the items that you're quoting are going to be the righted products in the quote or that make up the opportunity in CRM. Oh, that makes sense. So, QuoteWerks, anytime it sends the items to CRM, it's going to put them in this provided products section. Does anyone have any questions about the CRM integration? And again, this will follow the same steps as the other one, that when you do file, convert to order, going to prompt you to update that opportunity as 1, and then it'll convert it for you. And then you'll actually see little statuses down here at the bottom, so you can see it's updating for CRM. So what it's doing is actually checking the items and making sure the items are up to date. Or if the quantity had changed or pricing had changed or anything like that, that's when you can make these adjustments. So next we're going to go to the ConnectWise integration. So I'm going to start with a new quote. Contacts, set up contact manager, and ConnectWise. So for you ConnectWise users, we're not going to go through setting up this integration from scratch because it is a lot. It probably takes about half an hour just to explain most of it. But you'll need to put in your ConnectWise server URL, company information, integrator. So you actually have to go into ConnectWise and add QuoteWerks as an integrator login first before you can even get into the setup. If you go into our help file, we actually have instructions for setting up the ConnectWise integration. That's actually the first step, is going into that setup and doing that. So a couple things that are different with the ConnectWise integration is you can actually set QuoteWerks or set ConnectWise as a not primary CRM. So if you use contacts from another CRM, maybe you use Salesforce or something like that, and you just want to use ConnectWise for ticketing, you can actually set ConnectWise as a secondary CRM with QuoteWerks. For our purposes, we're going to go ahead and do it as a primary. You can also set your purchase order integration from here. So ours is set to QuickBooks. The reason we give you this option is because you might want to set it as ConnectWise here. So if you want to change this, you're able to do that. The notifications, so if you remember on the dashboard, we talked about that notifications panel on the right-hand side. This is where you set those specific notifications in ConnectWise. So when you create an opportunity in ConnectWise and it has a status of create quote or no decision, in your dashboard, you'll actually see the notification on the right-hand side letting you know that you want to or need to create a quote for that specific opportunity. And then once you've created that quote for the opportunity, simply just change that opportunity status. Your service ticket defaults, those are pretty straightforward. And then if you want to be warned about not creating a service ticket when you've converted the quote to an order and you've won the opportunity, you can check this box and it'll remind you to create that ticket. The opportunities, like I said, there's a lot of information here, so we're not going to go quite through all this, but if you're interested, after the meeting, I'll walk you through it if you like. But you'll see it has some of the same similarities to all the other CRM integrations, so we're going to update that opportunity in ConnectWise when you convert it to an order. You can choose to include the cost. This is actually something that I should mention. Enable multiple quotes per opportunity. So ConnectWise used to have the ability to have multiple quotes for each single opportunity in ConnectWise. And so QuoteWerks was actually able to attach multiple quotes for that opportunity. They don't have that functionality anymore. They actually removed that API call. So in QuoteWerks, in your integration, you're going to want to make sure you uncheck this box because it can actually result in like duplicate quotes and things of that nature if you leave it checked. So if you're ever seeing any kind of duplicates or anything like that, it's probably this, or if something's not working, this is pretty much the cause of any issues right now. So we're leaving it there because if they ever add it back, it's a nice feature to have. But right now, just leave this unchecked as of version 5, build 4. Your default item types. Those who have ConnectWise know that ConnectWise requires item types for the different line items, so this is where you can set those defaults. So if you have your product, item, QuoteWerks, discount, charge, and formula line, this is how they're going to go with ConnectWise as products, but you can change that. Default business unit, default opportunity forecast status, you can set here as well. The forecast lines, you're going to need to make sure you go through all these mappings, so anyone that is using ConnectWise, if you haven't gone through these mappings, you need to make sure you go through all this because there's a lot to this integration. So if you see something that's going over to ConnectWise and it doesn't look right, this is probably why there's probably a mapping off. This is also where you can adjust your shipping options as well. So if you want to change how the shipping items are gone over, you can go there as well. And then if you're going to be writing products over to ConnectWise, this is where you're going to set those mappings as well. Again, we're not going to go through all these, but you can see there's quite a few different mapping options. And you're going to need to go through and map those. Again, this is all in the help file, so if you have questions about this or need help, just let us know. We do it on a pretty regular basis, so we can definitely help you. And then the product list, if you want to link directly with the ConnectWise product list, we can do that in QuoteWerks, so we can actually pull that information from ConnectWise directly into QuoteWerks. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And we're actually going to start with a new quote because I want to pull not only a contact from ConnectWise but also items. So we're going to do a search. It's going to log us into ConnectWise, turn back our results. We can select our contact. If you have multiple sites set up within a company record, QuoteWerks will actually prompt you to select the correct address record. So if you selected multiple sites, you can choose, okay, I want to select the main one, not the Sacramento office, and then it'll prompt you for each field that you wanted to pull this contact into. That way you can always make sure you're pulling the right site in your QuoteWerks. So once you have your contacts, we can now start adding products. So you'll see here if we click on our product screen, there's a ConnectWise option here. So ConnectWise has their own product list, so we can link directly to that. So if you have items in the ConnectWise list, you can pull them directly from ConnectWise into QuoteWerks. You can do a search by the manufacturer, vendor part number, description, manufacturer part number. Pretty straightforward there. One thing that's nice is that if you remember earlier I talked about anyone that's using Utilize. Anytime you see this Utilize panel, including in your product databases here, that means you can actually get product information from Utilize directly from this product list. So if I select an item here, and it shows up in Utilize, it'll actually go out So it'll actually go out to Utilize and find this item, and then you can actually cross-reference it with the pricing and the availability from the other distributors. So if you need to update it with pricing or availability and check it before you quote it out to your customer, you'll be able to do that here. So the Utilize integration is available through the ConnectWise product list. So it's going to be the same if you're using Autotask, if you're using Autotask product services or labor databases, we're going to be able to pull it in there as well.
How did you get ConnectWise to show up over there on product? Because I have ConnectWise integration, but I don't have ConnectWise showing the product.
Sure. Just go to Products, set up Product Sources,
Okay.
click New, and then just select ConnectWise from the drop-down list. And then it's already going to be mapped for you.
And what is it showing in there? Is it showing products that you've sold before? Where is that list coming from?
That's coming from ConnectWise. So that's actually the ConnectWise product list.
Okay.
So if you created or set up any items in ConnectWise, they'll show up there.
Okay.
It'll be pre-mapped for you, so you can actually just hit next and then give it a name. It should default to ConnectWise. You can hit next, you can skip that screen, go next. If you see this screen, this is where we're talking about setting up security settings based on users who, if you want to like hide a vendor database from a user, not give them access to delete it, this is what that looks like. We'll go into more detail on this when we get to that section, but that's what that looks like. And then hit next and then finish. And then when you go into your product list, you'll see the ConnectWise option. That show up for you?
I'm gonna have to log out one.
It should be automatic. There might be a delay.
It's there now.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if you click Show All, it'll load all the items from that database at once. So if we select a couple items here, just add them to your vote. We're gonna do all these items. One of the important fields for you ConnectWise users is going to be the item type field. So under View Customize Columns, I do recommend you putting this item type field either next to the description of your item or somewhere similar where it's easy to access. The item type field determines how this item here is going to be sent to the ConnectWise opportunity. So if you want it to go over as a service, you need to make sure that that is set as a service. If you want it to go over as a product, you need to make sure it's set as a product. We'll pull these item types automatically from you from the product databases, but you can change them if you need to on the fly. If it's blank, usually what that means is that your items will be sent to ConnectWise as a product. You'll have to check your settings to see if that's true or not, but that's typically how it's set up in QuoteWerks. Set cost here. So the items that have cost. So, and just like the other integrations, the ConnectWise trigger is going to be on the save. So once you've selected a contact and you built your quote and you click save, it's going to prompt you to create the document or the opportunity in ConnectWise. And then this is where it's going to have your ConnectWise integration. Now, for ConnectWise, Autotask, and Salesforce, you can actually set the status to offline since they have web versions. That means that, you know, if for some reason your internet connection is down and you need to still be able to save your quote in QuoteWerks, you can hit save, and it'll still save your document in QuoteWerks, but it won't write any information into your CRM. So any of the web-based CRMs, they have this option to set your status to offline. Very useful if you're like creating a quote on a plane or something like that, and you have to wait till you get back into the office to attach it to your CRM. You can set it as offline, that way you don't lose anything that you've done. So we're going to change it to online, and then you have your option to create the opportunity, create the link document, create a follow-up activity, and create a one-off activity. Follow-up activity and the one-off activity are the exact same things. The only difference is that the follow-up activity is first and one-off activity is second. It just allows you to do more than one. It's the only difference between the two. And then if you want to create a service ticket at the time of creating or updating the opportunity, check this box. So this will let you create the create the service ticket for this specific opportunity right now, or you can wait till the customer has accepted it, or farther on down the road, maybe you have to at least deliver the quote to the customer first, and then you create the tickets at that point. So it's going to be up to you. I'll show you what that looks like. We'll go ahead and we'll hit OK. So the first thing it's going to do is create our, or save our document in QuoteWerks, so just like the other ones. And it's going to prompt us to create our opportunity in ConnectWise. Again, if your opportunity already exists in ConnectWise, you can click on the drop down, and we can actually link to that existing opportunity. Again, something to keep in mind, if you're linking to an existing opportunity, QuoteWerks is going to take ownership of that opportunity, so we're going to override it. So just remember that if you're starting with an opportunity that already has items in there, that you keep that in mind if you're going to link to an existing one. This will be the title of the opportunity, and then you can set from the type down that are all ConnectWise fields. So if you need to set the type, the status, description, close date, all that information, that's going to be set here. And then the bottom option is going to let you choose whether or not you want to write the individual line items into ConnectWise. This is important because you may not want QuoteWerks to create a line item for every quote and every opportunity you create in ConnectWise. You may only want the line items that you're actually going to sell, so your ConnectWise product database isn't full of items that are never going to close. So if you uncheck that, we'll still create the opportunity, we'll still create the forecast lines, we just won't write the individual line items into ConnectWise itself. For our purposes, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create it. If you want to attach additional documentation with that opportunity, you can click on the Attachments tab and you can choose to add the file. So if you want to add like, maybe the customer sent you like an RFP or an RFQ or something from the Links tab, you can attach it there as well. Right, so we're going to create our opportunity first, and then it's going to prompt us to create the follow-up call, I think, next. So it's going to prompt us to create the ConnectWise activity, and then you can set the type, if it's a call, quote, follow-up, whatever you like, and then who you want to assign it to, and the due date, and specify the time. If you want to follow-up call, so just cancel that. Create that. And then by default, this is also going to prompt us to create the service ticket because I selected that option. So if I want to create a ticket at this point, this is my chance. You can select your service board, your status, the type, subtype, service items, all this information. The only required field here is the summary because that's basically the ticket name. So whatever you want to call the ticket, you can use the summary field for that. And then you put in the description note and internal analysis note if you need to. You need to create more than one, just click create and new. If you just want the one, you click create. I'm just going to cancel there. So when we convert the quote to an order, so we've created a, so let's go into ConnectWise. So let's go to opportunities. Actually, if you're using the web version of ConnectWise, this is extremely useful. This auto links, I can actually go right to that opportunity in ConnectWise. You do have to have the web version of ConnectWise though. We'll work with it on premise yet. They don't have the API yet. So here's our opportunity in ConnectWise. It has our one product that we had and then our service. If I had said anything as recurring in the service, that would also come over to the opportunity as well. Click on our products tab, you'll actually see the product item that was sent over as well. So that's over in our opportunity also. So everything looks good. Customer's ready to move forward, so we convert the quote to an order. And we can hit OK. And then this will prompt us to update the opportunity in ConnectWise as one. And then you'll also be able to create tickets at this point. So if you need to create tickets here, you'll have that option also. So you can change your sales stage to one. The status will automatically be set as one, but you can change it to something else if you need to. And then down here is where you can select what ticket you'd like to create. So if you want to create a ticket for services only, products and services for each service, you can do that. You can also create a sales order. So this is new in version 5.0 build 1. So if you wanted to be able to create the sales order directly from the opportunity, this checkbox is available, and simply check it, and then we'll convert the quote to order, and then we'll also create the sales order in ConnectWise for you based on the opportunity. Anything that's in the opportunity will flow over to the sales order in ConnectWise. If you don't want to create it, just uncheck it. And there is a default setting in the ConnectWise integration setup where you can choose whether or not you want this checked by default or not. We don't use sales orders, so we'll go ahead and check that. So it's going to update our opportunity here. Change everything to 1. If any of the items pricing has changed or quantity changes or anything like that from the customer selections, then it'll update the opportunity, and then you'll see here it'll close it. And then if we're going to create the sales order, it'll go ahead and ship off the sales order as well. If you're creating tickets at this point, now it'll prompt you to create the ticket. Again, if you want to link to an existing ticket, you can do that from the drop down, and then you can select your option. Create that ticket in ConnectWise. So, any questions about the ConnectWise integration for any of the ConnectWise users? Alright. So, last one we're going to show is going to be the AutoTask integration. So this will be very similar to actually the MSCRM and the ConnectWise integration. They're very similar. So what we're going to do is, let's create a new link actually. So we're going to set our AutoTask integration. You're going to have the option between the cloud and the on-premise. 99.9% of you are going to have the cloud version of AutoTask. I don't think they're even selling the on-premise anymore. I think they're forcing most people off of it if they're even on it. So the setup's going to be simple for this, at least this portion. You'll put in the cloud, and then you also put in your AutoTask settings here. And then there's a test to do that. The next option is going to be the AutoTask setup. So similar to ConnectWise, AutoTask has a lot of functions and features, and they have a lot of API calls that we can use. So you're going to have to go through quite a few mappings for the AutoTask integration as well. I'm not going to go through all of them because it does take a few minutes, but you can see you basically choose your opportunity options. So automatic, how do you want to update the sales forecast in AutoTask when converting to an order? That's kind of the default we use for all of them, but you can change that. Here's your default item types for the line items when they're sent over to AutoTask. So if it's a product, charge, formula, or group bundle, these are the item types it's going to use. You can also send over some advanced information. So if you want to take like the recurring weekly subtotal of a quote and send it over to the advanced field in AutoTask, you can do that. So that's what these mappings are for. I'm going to go ahead and map that to none, but those are available to you. The quote products option is going to allow you to set the default. So if you have an empty quote product, or if you have an empty item number here in one of your items, you can use, these are the defaults that are going to be set. You also have the option to send over only a single summary item for grouped bundles. So in QuoteWerks, if you create a bundle and you don't want the individual items over to AutoTask, you just want like the summary line, you can check that and that'll send over the single summary line. If you want the grouped items, you just check the box for the grouped items. The mappings here are going to be very similar to the ConnectWise one that we just showed, so you'll just go through the mappings, check the help file if you want some help with it. And then the product data source. So ConnectWise or AutoTask has a product, services, and labor database. So we can link to all three of those, and then you can set the QuoteWerks item type. So if it's pulling from the product database, we want it to be a product. If we're pulling from the services database, we want it to be a service. If it's pulling from the labor, we want it to be a service because the labor is typically a service. And then you can set the tax code for it. That way you don't have to map those or change those automatically. And then your settings is going to be your purchase order integration and then also the notifications that we talked about earlier. So mine's set up that if in AutoTask I have an opportunity set as needs quote, then in QuoteWerks on my QuoteWerks dashboard on that notifications panel, it'll show up any of those opportunities with that specific status set.
Is Dynamics one of the options for your integration there?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, the MSCRM integration, that's Dynamics.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Call it the wrong thing.
Yeah, it doesn't have the notifications function.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only going to be for ConnectWise and AutoTask.
All right.
So again, this is going to look very similar. So we're going to click on our magnifying glass to look for a contact. So we can search by account name, first name, last name, phone, account ID, or account number, and So we'll search by our company name. It's gonna log into AutoTask for us. Pull in our contact. We'll go ahead and we'll select Jessie since she's in here. And we'll pull her into all of our contact information there. And then we can start adding items. So similar to the ConnectWise and even Salesforce, we can link directly to those AutoTask product databases. So if we click on the AutoTask products and do show all, this will load all the products that are in the AutoTask database right now. As you can see, you can search by the description, manufacturer, part number, to locate the items. You'll also see the Utilize panel buttons here. So if you do want to cross-reference an item with Utilize, you can do that. So let's go ahead and just select a couple items here. This is the quote. If you wanted to pull items from your services database, so if you have already your services set up in QuoteWerks or in AutoTask, you can pull those in as well. And you can add those to the document also.
So on that one, actually, I think you got it in your test data. I think you have an error. So line 2 looks like, when I was just at a glance, I noticed your Oracle 1 to 12, and I think your unit cost should be 300, not 30. So like, you know, it might be a good obvious, you know, your margin. You think you've got 95 points of margin on that deal. Is there an alarm or anything you can see where it's just like the order just looks out of whack?
You can set up document approvals in QuoteWerks,
Okay.
where basically if a margin is too high or too low on a specific line item or the entire document, it actually says, hey, your margin is at whatever 95%. You need management approval to send out the quote this way.
Yeah.
So you can do that.
Because it's just, I mean, because if you're expecting something, in that case, if somebody does have somehow an error field that gets imported in, right?
Right.
That's a good example of it.
Yeah. So yeah, if you set up
91, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good margin on that.
Yeah. So you could set up document approvals, and a lot of people do, where they say, you know, if my document is over 45% margin, you need management approval because there's probably something misquoted on the quote.
Okay. Cool.
And same thing, you can even do it on the other side if something's too low. You know,
Yeah.
if there's only a 5% margin,
Yeah.
then you have to get management approval to
Yeah.
send something out.
Nice. That's cool.
So let's go ahead and we're gonna set a cost here. So once you're ready to send it out to the customer, again, the trigger is going to be on the save. We're going to have our document name, document number, status, and then here's our AutoTask integration settings. So we're going to create the sales opportunity in AutoTask, the link document, and then the AutoTask quote. This is important if you want the line items to flow into AutoTask. You do have to create that AutoTask quote. So similar to the MS CRM integration, where we have to create the CRM quote for the line items, you have to do that with AutoTask also. Otherwise, you won't have the individual line items. We can still create the opportunity without creating the quote. You just, if you need the line items to do any kind of purchasing or anything like that, then you'll want this checked. And then if you want to create an account note, you can just check that box, and that'll create an account note for it as well. Okay. It's going to save our document in QuoteWerks, and it's going to bring up our new AutoTask opportunity window. Again, if you click on the drop-down, you can link to an existing opportunity. And again, we are going to take ownership of that opportunity, so just keep that in mind if you ever link to an existing opportunity. There's our opportunity name, the owner, the stage, status, projected close date, probability, and rating. So we'll go ahead and hit save. Attachments, if you need to attach files to that opportunity in AutoTask, you can do that here as well. So we'll create the new AutoTask quote. So this will use basically your default settings. You can put in a description if you like, set your dates, and then put in a comment, and hit save. And then you'll see it'll write our items into AutoTask for us. Just like ConnectWise, the item type field here does determine how those items are sent over to AutoTask. That's why we have all those mappings, so it is important that you check those. So if we go into AutoTask, so here's the opportunity we just created. And then if we go to the quote here, you can actually view the line items that are sent to AutoTask. And it'll separate them for you if they're monthly, quarterly, annual. And then when you're ready to convert it to an order, customer says, yeah, everything looks great, let's go ahead, file, convert to order, and then we'll hit OK. And then again, any changes, it'll update for you, and then we'll convert this to an order. We'll set the status as closed. Autotask has an additional feature where when an opportunity is won, you need to run what's called the opportunity, or the one opportunity wizard. We don't run that because there's a lot of settings and things involved that you need to specify. So you can set your status as closed, and you can do a search on the closed opportunities to see which ones need to run it, or you can create a new status that says, hey, you need to run the one opportunity on there. Either one, it's up to you how you want to set that up, but you might want to look into that if you're setting, you know, if you need to make those adjustments. Hit save. Yes, that'll update the opportunity with any changes, and then you can see it's converted to an order and ready to send to the customer. Okay.